Hey everybody, it's another Friday Night Fun Time with Tim and Andrew.
Hey.
Mark had an incident involving some very bad fish, or maybe a bad pie, or possibly a bad fish pie, and he could not make it onto the stream this week, so you get our wonderful, wonderful selves dragged out from the forest of code, here to speak at you in Hex. Do you remember the Flight of the Conchords? The song "The Humans Are Dead," where they just had a binary solo and just went 01110111101. Yeah, I'm gonna do that for you.
Have at it. And you guys will be required to interpret while he goes.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, it's like the end of the Matrix movie. God, I wish they'd make a sequel to that. They should. It's too bad no one ever did. But, just like nothing but like green symbols, and then they slowly part, and I see the camera, and then the curtains close again, and I cease to be a human for another week. So, hello to my wife, who is watching me from the San Francisco airport right now. I don't see my wife anymore. She lives on the road. And hello to all of you. So it has been the best of weeks and the worst of weeks. Like, so many things landed and came in together, and then all of these things collectively had... Well, I mean, any new code, there's roughly, every 1,000 lines of code has approximately X number of bugs per line average, and so you drop in a certain amount of new stuff and you get a certain amount of bugs. So, the build's fucked right now. Hatchery is a tire fire, but there's so many things that, like, major blocks of stuff that got added that it's awesome, but every single one of those has, like, little bugs that, I pretty much, like, first half of next week, we're having infrastructure week. And,
I wasn't sure you were going to go there.
Yeah, I went there. Next week is just going to, like, lock down a branch and do nothing but bug fixes on that, and not let any new features in. Just fix it. And what that means is that we are not doing any weekend tests this weekend, but and you're going to be really sad when I tell you what the first item on this list is. But next week, I am very optimistic that there should be a test. No promises until we actually get through that work. But there are huge amounts of new stuff, and they all came in hot. And so let's talk about some of that. Tim.
Oh, I see. You're going to tell them that they're going to be disappointed, and I get to bring that news in?
Yeah, the disappointment.
All right. Number one is support classes. So this week, Anthony thought some music would do the world some good and reinvigorated the minstrel class. It's mostly ready to go mechanically and will be undergoing internal testing before it is ready for prime time. Also, the Dark Fool and the Scald are in progress, but a bit further out.
So yeah, minstrels. Finally.
Yep.
Minstrels finally. Do we... So I know a lot of people have been looking forward to that. So I'm sorry that that's not quite online for a test, but ASAP, infrastructure week next week, gonna happen.
Yeah.
Get people in a build that's much more stable than today's. Dark Fool and Scald coming, but work has started. It's progressing well.
Yeah, the main thing, I'm going to jump ahead here. Number 8 is AJ is also spinning this week getting the new classes hooked up to the patcher. So once they've had their internal testing, they'll be available there. So we haven't even, I think anybody except Anthony and maybe Ben haven't gotten to see the minstrels yet because we're waiting for them to go into the patcher so that testing isn't a huge pain in the ass. yeah, we're excited to try them out too.
Are you saying you weren't so enthusiastic about it that you didn't just go create one in the database yourself?
No, I don't have time to do that. I've got other things. I have stuff on this list this week.
I'm going to go to number 2, tech and textures. This is one that I kind of did the first half of it last week, and then just sort of handed off to Wiley while I put out fires. New layouts for generated textures. So a little bit about how our character art system works. Like, we start with just like a naked guy with a naked texture on him. And we build up his entire set of clothes with decal on a shirt onto the texture and change out the vertices to make a shirt shape, and then decal on a breastplate and change out the vertices just to make a breastplate. And that's how you have all of these layers, but it's still actually just one model with one texture. It's not like we're drawing a shirt, when you're running around in the world, we're not drawing you and then a shirt and then a breastplate and then some gauntlets. It's just no, here's just one mesh that's built up like all of that. And
that's how you can get stuff like if your guy's wearing, a long sleeve, cotton or leather shirt, and then you've got, a plate mail breastplate that's just the vest / breastplate part of it. Your arms still have the leather texture, both the geo and the texture for them.
And so it's not like we, and what that means is that we don't have, we're not drawing, dozens of objects for every character. It's one custom built object that's just your character. And as we started doing NPCs and creatures and things, the art team was the layout of what goes where, doesn't work for some of these, so we need a way to data drive that. And so we gave them a way to data drive that. And that works now. And so the art team can just be here's a new layout, and this entire section of the texture is reserved for the tail feathers. Here's the wings, here's, all of those things. And, that opens up all of that. And Wiley and I both did a little bit, and that's in the game, and you'll be seeing things using it soon.
There's also, considerations there about areas of interest and where you allocate, texture space, right? So if
your eyes take up as much texture space as your forearm, for instance, so that you can zoom in on someone's character, and the eyes really matter.
Yeah, and so if there was a different character where maybe the chest piece mattered more, or maybe they have really intricate arms, this allows us to allocate more visual detail to the places of interest.
Tim wants the butt wings back.
Butt wings.
Highest possible detail on the butt wings. You can see all the veins all through the butt wings.
Or a headless character with 6 arms, and you can see all the muscles and ripples on his arms. One big beefy arm on his back.
Looks real good coming out the side of his back there.
I suppose I'll hit this one. So database hardware upgrades. So behind the scenes, we've been dealing with just lots of database errors and lags and stuff happening recently that's been a pain in the ass, and Brian has been incredibly patient with it. It turns out that some of our oldest hardware that's been around basically since the Kickstarter days.
No, to tell them what the oldest hardware was.
That was there.
Mark's home PC. Mark donated his home desktop PC to CSE as our database server.
Complete with spinny drives and everything.
Our
database
no
was
SSD.
running off. Yeah. Yep. And so we finally outgrew that hardware, and it was just dying trying to keep up with the scale of the assets and the scale of the team as it's grown over the last few years. And so we added some new hardware, and in case you're worried, Mark's old machine is still there doing stuff. It's still a part of the team, It just isn't running the database anymore because it sucked at that.
Yeah, I don't know. It might want to go live on a farm.
Yeah, well, so
farm by the dumpster.
Yeah, we've got a pile of boxes back there that CSE server has served us well, but we've got CSE Win, which is from like the March on Oz days that we all hate with a fiery, burning, flaming passion, and we have kept it around all these years so that we can beat the ever-loving shit out of it someday.
Yeah. Did you know that HP sells a server that costs less than $500?
We do now.
Oh yeah, we're big spenders here. So yeah, I did you know that server has like built into the firmware something to automatically make it go to sleep, like when it's had no input, just like it was some random laptop.
Yeah.
Except it's sold as a server, so we need to go push a key on it to wake it up.
Yep. Like you literally
wake up the server.
Why can't I get files off the server? Oh, it's asleep. So that server isn't around anymore. Well, that server's not in live production anymore. It's in a closet so that we can blow it up or go Office Space on it or something.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do that today.
I think Mark ought to have an opportunity to have a crack at it.
Fine. So number 4. Tech and textures. So there have been like all kinds of miscellaneous texture issues with like artifacts, black spots, blown out reflections on some materials, and we pushed a change. And this was actually something on like how textures are processed to get them into the game. So we had this fun start the build, and Bull said it should take about 4 hours.
8. He said 8.
8 hours, and it actually took more like 36 hours.
We did a test on like some of them, and then tried to extrapolate it, and our extrapolation was not on.
But now like there's a crap ton of textures that like don't have like weird shiny spots or dim spots or black spots or anything like that on them. So,
but I do believe that means there's a fairly sizable patch the next time you guys log in, right?
Yes.
So for those of you, hopefully, again, we're really shooting for a test next week. It might behoove you to hop on a little bit early and get all that patch down.
Has that been pushed beyond Hatchery yet?
I don't think so.
We will.
But when we start
we'll
sending out those
it.
emails for like the midweek tests, which hopefully we'll be sending out, keep your eyes open on them so that you can patch early.
Or this might be a good time to just make a new patcher and put it on BitTorrent, like a new installer. We'll figure it out next week.
But we
good
rebuilt
point,
like
Tim.
every texture in the game got rebuilt.
So I'll go number 5 because number 6 is you. So tech and sound effects. DB did a bunch of generic ability interrupt sounds, and that's going to be played when something interrupts one of your abilities, and there's a little bit of tech to sync that up. Would be cool to get some racial variations on that. I think that's a good candidate for race and gender and class variations to go. We could even take it farther and add some flair. Damn it! 1 in 1,000 chats that your character just curses when their skill gets interrupted.
I forget. There was a game that would put the little comic book swear characters over your head anytime you got interrupted.
Which game was that? Asking chat. Meanwhile,
I think it was Guild Wars 1, but so number 6 is unified build scripts. You guys have probably heard me talk about this. There's been a couple of streams I've been on where you guys are like, what's the thing you're most looking forward to getting done or doing? This has been on my list for a long time, and I finally got time to do it. We've got a couple different scripts that are used to turn code into our clients, our editors, and servers. So anytime any one of the engineers submits code, it goes into our Git repo, and then we've got a server called our Jenkins server, which pulls Git and compiles everything. And once it's compiled it uploads it, and there's a script that drives the order and ways in which it compiles things and how it uploads them and how it stages them, and it does all of that prep work for us. Until last week, late last week, early this week, there were like 3 different versions of this script, and none of them were actually like in code. They were through like Jenkins's proprietary UI framework, and so anytime you wanted to like rearrange the order of things, you had to go and grab all these building blocks and move them around, and sometimes it didn't like the way that you moved them, and so you had to delete them and remake them in this new place. So we just killed the fuck out of all of that. And now there's just a script that's actual code, so that it's just a matter of moving like a line of text up or down if you want to rearrange the order of things that happen in them. And there's only one. There used to be 3 or 4 of these. So Hatchery, if any of you IT guys that have been on Hatchery had its own special script that was different from everybody else's. And then when we did the push earlier this year to 64-bit all the things, there was a slightly different script to do all the 64-bit stuff. And then when we upgraded to Visual Studio 2019, there was a different script to do the 2019 things. And then if we wanted to make a change to all of them, we had to make that change 4 times. So as we've been working on turning everything into Linux, we didn't want to have to write that 4 times. And so I got the opportunity to unify all this into one script that gets checked into Git, so it gets version controlled with Git. I'm super excited about it. It's been fantastic, and I'm happy it's done. So that's done. That's in. You guys will probably never even notice that it happened, but it's been a giant pain in the ass for us, and it's murdered.
Tim is very, very happy about this.
Happy.
I'm just like, I didn't actually know it was that bad. I just like relied on like I push a button and a build happens, and this was your personal rage, wasn't it? This was just like your personal rage.
Yeah. So I was out for a couple weeks back. I went to Iceland, and I got back and just sort of disappeared and made this happen. And so like the fire sort of raged for that week while I disappeared and let the team, continue to suffer in flames while I took care of it.
Iceland's become like the official city-state vacation. Like if you like Vikings and cheap air travel.
Yeah. It is literally cheaper for us to go visit Iceland than it is to go visit my wife's family in Arizona. At least for air travel. Once you get there, it's expensive as fuck, but So, Iceland unified build scripts. They're done.
Yeah, like how many people of the 5 people who sit closest to me, I think 3 of them have like at some point taken the Iceland vacation. So maybe I should try that someday.
It's awesome.
So speaking of scripting, scenario scripting. Spidey dropped in new objective scripting tech for enabling objectives, turning them on and off, additional improvements for the actual dev UI for tracking that. And that's going to let us do all kinds of things with like, okay, now this objective is active, and do this cool thing as a result, and make scenarios like multi-stage dynamic cool things. I've said a long time ago, like, we brought in this idea of scenarios, but the idea of scenarios is that they are both going to like scale all the way down to just like you get a quest or a bounty, or all the way up to ultimately there's one like super meta scenario that's kind of just the persistent game world. Yeah. So this is like awesome tech that's advancing as needed. And it's as we build more things with it, we build more features for it.
Yeah, like conceivably, like there could be a scenario that's just basically running like the Veil Storms. Like that could just be like one of the scenarios that just runs all the time.
So you skipped 8.
Yep, we already did 8.
More work on the editor. I've said a bunch of times, the editor, Cube is a decently nice environment, but the world editor for like actually placing down building plots and pulling terrain and placing trees and all, that's not nearly as nice as Cube. And it is a world editor that we pay people to endure, not a thing that you guys would want to pay to use. But
no one at CSC wakes up in the morning and goes, yeah, I get to do the world editor today.
But Rob has taken a bunch of the editing tools that we made for you guys in Cube and moved them into the world editor to replace horrible, clunky, broken crap that like I put together in like honestly probably 2 hours. And and that's going to make it, that continues to make things a lot better. Also doing stuff about like dragging and selecting big regions of points on the terrain and pulling them so you don't have to manually pull one point up and down. Lots of goodness there. Someday maybe it will get to the point where it is good enough to expose for you to like edit the terrain on your building plot. Maybe, no promises on that, but that would be a nice add someday.
Well, we're getting to the point where a lot of that tech is shared.
Yeah.
Like, used to be, like, if you wanted to move something around in the world, we had two very different tools, one for the editor, one for the game client, and we're getting towards, unifying those and sharing them so that we can just make that one tool better, and it's better for you guys, and it's better for us.
So, number 10 and number 11, two big bugs from Matt. Matt has been like, Matt has been the grumpy engine that could of just like, fix that thing, fix that thing, fix that thing, fix that thing. Made no progress on my like actual tasks for the sprint, but all the broken stuff that like happened came in and fixed those.
Matt turns grump into bug fixes.
Yes. And deals with constantly getting interrupted. So, yay, Matt. And thank you for volunteering and jumping on all of the little spikes as they popped up. Landed the ability threading fix we mentioned in last week's update that was causing abilities to randomly fail. Fixed a crash that was plaguing new auto prep, which was another client threading bug. And
the prediction one was also randomly causing servers to lock up.
Yeah, so lots of I mentioned like all of the all this stuff got dropped in, and then all of it came in with a certain amount of bugs, and Matt's been the one finding and fixing it even when it's not in his code. So thank you, Matt. So number 12, continuing on the server Linuxification process. So kind of moving all of the C# stuff to, from old school .NET framework to new school .NET Core. I think we've got it just about done for like everything in the game server stack. There's a few things like the patcher that, gonna have to get touched too, but pretty much, yeah, like he's got servers up and running.
Yep. We had it's not being like deployed through our normal official channels of deployment, but we ran up one of Colin's NetCore servers onto the Hatchery box a couple of times yesterday or the day before. So they're running on the actual environment that they're going to be running on, not just like works on my machine. So we've been doing some of that.
Yeah, and, it was not a. Like most of the work was around the web API stuff, like just plain old framework to NetCore has been simple, but moving the ASP.NET stuff forward, we were a couple versions out of date on that, and now we're on like the latest bleeding edge, and that was probably where most of the work went in, but.
Yeah, even after we had it building, there was some couple leftover bits about like the way they changed how like your HTTPS certificates get registered. That's basically
just
completely
little config stuff,
and
the config stuff that had to happen to make it cross-platform. So we've run servers on Windows and started to run them on Linux, and I think we're gonna pull the trigger on some of this stuff next week. Possibly as soon as Monday, depending on how infrastructure week is going. Also, George did not send in his top 10 item, but he also did a bunch of work on getting like our threading library, like our super low-level threading library stuff fully Linuxified. So I'll mention that. You get lucky number 13 because it's Friday the 13th.
Is it?
It's Friday the 13th and a full moon.
Good.
You know what that means?
Twice the Crazy's out tonight.
Means I beat you with a duck.
Number 13, support items. Sandra is working on concept items for the support classes. She's created bone reed pipes for the Dark Fool, frost axes for the Scald, and harpo lyres for the Minstrel. What's a harpo lyre? Do you know what a harpo lyre is?
I don't know. We should pull Sandra over here and make her explain
What's
it
a
on the
harpo
stream.
lyre?
It's a three-necked guitar.
A three-necked guitar. Neat.
Google it. It sounds really cool.
Is this like... This sounds like something Steve Vai jerked off to. Oh, I said that, didn't I? I should not have said that.
I should not have said that. So before Andrew gets to talk again, number 14.
Did they even hear? Did they hear John? John says like it's a three-necked guitar and it's really cool. And
It's
yeah.
just Andrew comments without context.
Yeah.
Don't clip that.
Number 14, mage staves. This week, Sierra, our newest artist, created some mage staves. We'll add these weapons to the game later when we finalize the crafting model for weapons and armor. So, mage sticks.
Yeah, and I've had my hand deep in like the customization and layout stuff this week, so I'm raring to go on that.
Well, you can hit pauldrons then.
But it's so much more fun to hit you.
Mm.
So Joe has finished a set of Viking pauldrons for medium armor wearers, and check the weekly update email for some pictures of that, I'm sure. So yeah, it's been an engineering heavy week. I'm looking forward to getting out of Linuxification world and making shiny stuff go again.
It's cool stuff and exciting stuff, but it's less shiny for you guys.
Yeah, I mean the reason I'm a game developer is because I like shinies.
Yeah.
So you have one pure game programmer and one we'll say DevOps
Thanks.
engineer.
I appreciate it.
You do code reviews on gameplay code.
Yeah.
We let you see the gameplay code. You just don't get to touch it.
Oh my god, yesterday I had like 3 reviews that are at least 7 pages long. Plus somehow Che managed to fit like a 7-page review onto 1 page. I don't know what he did to do that.
It's by the number of files.
Yeah.
Like it's just this many files touched per page. So
yeah, there was
if
like
you,
2 completely new files.
Yeah, so if you just had like, one, just made 50,000 lines worth of changes to one file, that's a 1-page review. So yeah, how to torment people with review board.
Oh,
Now
it's
you
only
know.
1 page.
All right, so we will open it up for questions. If you have design questions, we'll make Benand or MJ come back next week. Although I'll do a wrong answers only design questions, as long as we understand that it's hashtag wrong answers only.
Loot box is what?
Strike JK asks, will Linux servers also be hosted via Amazon, or do you have to look for a new distributor for the new Linux server?
So we're gonna have a bake-off. Amazon was just kind of like the default when we started, but after we dial in like the final performance on the servers, we're gonna just test them on GCP, test them on Google Cloud, test them on Amazon, test them on Azure, test them on Rackspace, and see which ones meet our performance needs and which ones give us the best price performance. And we've held off on really committing on that because we knew that this change was going to come, and so now that this change is here, we'll come a lot closer to being able to make a final eval on these. All our stuff's super agnostic, so it's we've put in the work to get things running on everything.
Yeah. There's basically like we were having this conversation literally 5 minutes before Andrew and I came on stream of like, we've been gathering all this data on how our machine or how our servers perform on the current version of .NET, on Windows, on this current cloud provider, and now we're looking at different cloud providers running on Linux instead of Windows, running on .NET Core instead of .NET Framework. And so everything about our performance profile is about to get punched in the face.
So we'll commit to something soon, but we're not overly attached to anything. Right? I got a little bit of bias towards Google because my wife works there, but I don't think Google actually we're like a fly on the windshield compared to like their infrastructure, so they don't really actually care whether we go with them or not.
Yeah.
Swipper asks, how was DragonCon?
Oh my god, it's hard to believe that was like, only 2 weeks ago. It was amazing. It was awesome. Thanks to everyone who came out and came to see us, asked us hard questions in the panel. I don't know if you saw, my horrible group cosplay where we cosplayed as Top Gun, with some little cardboard planes, and I was dressed up as the highway to the danger zone.
I'm sure it's on Twitter.
Yeah, my wife was dressed up as the volleyball. Actually, it got like picked up by the local CBS news channel as like, oh my god, look at this crazy thing from DragonCon. So, I am the master of like doing half-assed, crappy
half-assed cosplay
that like gets more attention than the people who spent thousands of hours on it. And I feel a little guilty because I'm like, oh my gosh, that person
that is the best costume I've ever seen. I'm gonna get on the news.
Yeah, they did such a good job. Look at that craftsmanship. That's breathtaking. But you're not walking around screaming highway to the danger zone, so sorry for upstaging you. It was tons of fun. Tons and tons and tons of fun. That's where I go instead of Iceland. There was no absinthe smoothie this year, though. I was sad about that.
I hope you're both fans of Samurai Jack, because Bobo Deok has a back to the past question. If you could go back 3 years ago, what's the first thing you would have done differently?
3 years ago. Yeah. Trying to like put my head exactly where we were in 3 years ago. I mean, there's lots of technical things where I can say, hey, I learned a better way.
Right.
Like I would have focused much more on immutable concurrency in the client. We kind of had two different concurrency models, and one was in the client and one was in the server, and the server one clearly proved superior, but I couldn't know that at the time. We were still figuring things out.
Throw Robobone terrain threading model.
Yeah, terrain threading certainly could have been done better.
Sorry, Rob.
Well, I could say more about that. There's all kinds of lessons learned. I think the thing I would have focused more on finalizing our art model at the expense of some gameplay stuff, just that, so that we could be customizing, like doing fully custom, decal, textured equipment and everything now. Like the switch to HDR and physically based rendering, the switch to, like things like that, I would have tried to lock those down a lot sooner.
Rob hopped into the chat to say in all caps, "Oh God, what is even happening in here?"
I know, don't Rob. What happening there is. That's my way of expressing concurrency bugs.
I have learned as being one of the guys who's regularly putting out fires, I've gotten a lot better at figuring out which fires I can let burn a little bit longer so that we don't ever have to put that fire out again. It would have been really nice to have that knowledge 3 years ago and have automated away some of the problems that we've just continued to deal with over the years. So the lesson there, kids, is automate away everything.
IOG asks, how did the Danger Zone thing go at DragonCon?
That's my entire answer. I don't know. I got some pictures of it on Twitter or Facebook or, all of those things. You can track those down. I'm not going to I'm
gonna plug your Twitter on CSE Stream.
Google it. There's only there's two Andrew Meggses. One of them's an Australian Prime Minister, and one of them's insane. So go with the insane one.
AI Sense asks, 2 weeks ago you said you were only working on cube-shaped blocks for building, but in 2015 you had already coded round blocks, as some video showed it on your Twitter, Andrew. Is that idea scraped, or will they just be implemented later?
It is definitely not scrapped. So what happened with that was that I needed to, we just had to draw a line and get destruction working right, and so destruction was not really implemented for that, and that is something I have a vision. I have a vision there. I want to bring it to fruition. I cannot say when that can possibly happen because, we have exigencies of just ship the game. And I think everyone would rather see this game come out sooner than see this game come out with round blocks on launch day. I think everyone agrees with that. Get this thing to 1.0. And so... that vision is going to come later, but it's definitely not scrapped. It's in my heart. My heart is not scrapped yet.
Byproduct asks, will building plots eventually snap to each other?
Yes. Well, actually, put an asterisk on that.
Is that Andrew for yes and no?
In cities, we really want people to be able to, just have that typical medieval city with,
Shit
buildings
everywhere.
right up on top of each other, sharing adjoining walls and stuff like that. But a chamber pots getting thrown out of upper floors, and, Steve Vai throws a sticky Harpo lyre, whatever, down into the street.
I'll let you guys keep going with this train of questions because I want to see how far we can break Max.
Really don't.
I think we need a Max Reacts substream, picture in picture.
We just need GoPros mounted to our foreheads.
I'm watching the chat.
Who am I kidding? Steve Vai's not cool enough to be a Viking. So, in cities, that's definitely where we want to see things. Out in the wild, there's been a lot of talk about intentionally requiring buffer zones to, but that might be a thing where design-wise, we allow an entire guild to put together, a shared little mini city, but that's not a. So on a technical side, yes, but on a what do we want to allow where for gameplay, I am holding my answer back.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff we've considered in this space in terms of griefing and like Andrew said, urban areas versus rural areas, and using your building as both fortification and domicile, and coordinating with other players, but also giving players their own space, as it were. So it's I think going to be a configurable thing that we put in the domain of designers.
Empathetic Chaos asks, aren't you guys going to have your own servers at release? I thought you guys were only using cloud providers for testing, or am I wrong?
So there's a certain baseline that we might host ourselves, but you have to hit a certain size where having physical hardware makes sense. Because people to wrangle physical, people to go out to Equinix and go into a server cage and wrangle that, like, okay, well, that's $100K plus a year for that person.
Yeah, to hire a guy to manage those boxes.
And so we got to get to a point where, if we hit a point where the amount of servers we are using, like, the savings from doing that is greater than having that person, or really you need two of those people because you cannot have...
One can't go on vacation.
Yeah. Because someone has to be coverage when someone goes on, and so that sets an expensive baseline, and if we get to the point where the savings of hosting ourselves exceeds that baseline, that's something we'll absolutely look at. But that's going to depend on what our numbers are, and our tech is agnostic enough that really all we really care about is here's a stack of CPUs with high bandwidth between them, and as long as we've got that, we're not really locked into anything.
Mumblefish asks, is there anything else that you can tell us about scenario scripting?
So it's very, very event driven, and it shares a bunch of things with the kind of ability scripting. I'm not super gonna go into that right now, but it's definitely based on, like, all right, here's a thing, filter for events that happened in the world, and then generate a response, and other things can, the response is a data packet, other things get a chance to, like, attach and modify that data packet, and then the data packet ultimately executes whatever commands are in there at the end of the modification. We have a fairly deep system called the post office, which is just like, things happen in the world, and like, I killed Tim beat me with a duck, and all of those, like, events get raised, and we have a very lightweight system to filter and route them to whatever has subscribed or said, I care about events involving anyone being hit by a duck, or I care about events involving Tim dying. I care about... You don't care about Tim dying. Or rather, you won't after you die.
Maybe I do.
Oh, the vengeful Tim ghost. The hungry Tim ghost just following me around. So it's like it's actually a really, really cool system of just, like, ultra, all these events can get raised, and only the ones that matter get routed just to the places that care about them, and it's it's some black magic in there.
You guys should harass Max to harass the gameplay team to do a write-up for the newsletter about scenario scripting.
Ooh, yeah. That might be a good one.
Okay, then.
Or, it could be like another one of those mage streams.
I was saying, because there's no way we get any of those guys on the stream.
Yeah.
I am too nice to harass.
Not all of-
That's correct.
Not all of those guys are guys, but...
That was a gender-neutral, guys.
Critical
Cats.
Daney.
Cats is delightfully gender neutral, and it makes you sound like a jazz musician. Yeah.
Critical Daney asks,
We hired a new cat today.
Gans White Sparks also wants to know, is there a Linux version of the game coming?
Nope. That's a hard no. It's just we have not the number of people versus the amount of effort. we have various tech reasons why we might want to, go with things like a Vulkan render to run the game in the cloud or run the engine on Android or something like that in the future. But in terms of doing commercial support for the sheer variety of I compiled my own kernel,
so the work we've done, I think we've said this before, but the work we've done on the servers does get us closer to a Linux client, but there just isn't enough reason. That's not a thing we've promised you guys. It doesn't get the things that we've promised and that you guys have backed us for out to you any quicker. Also, that's the last cat we hired.
Lego Explosion 9 asks, what are some unexpected or funny things that beta testers have done in your game?
I mean, anything involving Donnie.
Yeah, my favorite thing that has happened it's always the cool emergent things. Couldn't get into the keep, so we just knocked down the supports of the tower and it fell over and crushed everyone in the courtyard of the keep. Using the healing stone things to catch air, make a battering ram catch air. Those are some of my favorite of just it makes sense that you did that, but we didn't plan for anyone to do that.
Yeah, that the rams and stones was really cool. Back when we first added dropping items on the ground and people were making stairways to heaven out of arrows, because the arrows would drop on top of whatever the previous arrow was, and so you could just stack them up and make staircases of them.
Yeah, because there wasn't proper physics on them yet.
Yeah. Rubble surfing was pretty cool.
Yeah, and now arrows are or dropped items are, I believe, much more physically plausible, which is good and bad. At some point, there's going to be a spell that just kicks up debris on the ground and sends it flying, and then you're going to get whacked in the head. Speaking of, one of the things that's not quite there yet is corpse ragdoll. So, little bit of work. Someone was working on that this week. Not gonna say more yet, but that'll be cool.
Mumblefish asks, could a very, very large plot have subplots within it, as to dictate external walls and never have too many bricks in one spot to count? Or is total footprint of a plot a resource issue regardless?
It depends.
That's one of those things we've definitely talked about, of your guild can get an Uber plot and chop it up amongst members. I'm not promising that, but that's absolutely something we've talked about.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little bit more work on how we do the physics of stuff on having a hierarchical kind of structure for collision and solving stuff. Right now we just be solve for damage and stability on an entire plot all at once, and finding ways to break that, writing the code to break that up into little islands where we can solve them independently is a limitation to make that work really, really well. So I'm not gonna say no, but maybe.
Sivius wants to know, who is the Steve Vai of software engineering?
Oh, let's see. I mean, I'm gonna say the future crew. Old school demo coders, just doing flashy demo things just for the sake of writing the code. Future crew were, way back in the 90s group, so era appropriate as well.
Pomard on the YouTube chat asks, When we cut trees, will fallen trees harm players?
I think that's a plan.
I mean, we already support falling rubble hurting players, so in terms of the tech is there. It's just if that's a thing that Ben and Mark want to happen.
Yeah, falling objects in general hurt players, and dropped items are just physics objects in the world now. So I think that just happens automatically. I don't think that's a I don't think that's a thing at all. Need to get proper tree cutting though.
Strike JK wants to know, procedurally generated plots, yay or nay?
Not sure what you mean by procedurally generated plots. You know, you can just run out in the world and be like, this bunch of procedurally generated terrain looks like a lovely place to make a building plot. I stick my flag there. Actually pre-populating the world with plots, that's something we'd rather let players have agency in doing. So I'm not sure what the question is.
I think we might have said, and again, this is more a design question, but I think we've said that, like, we want to empower Ben and MJ and anyone else doing world design type things to be able to, like, whitelist or blacklist areas so that, like, you can't put plots maybe in this particular area. But yeah, I think the goal is you guys go out and fucking plant your flag and build your homestead.
Yeah, unless you're talking about, just having a bunch of things that have pre-built buildings per an algorithm. I don't know. So 30 seconds from now, you'll hear me say this, and then you can explain the question better. I'm happy to answer it, though.
Well, we're probably coming up on the end of the stream here.
Find a good closer.
So 5-minute warning, folks. Salty Chew wants to know, what are you two looking forward to after Minstrels?
Honestly, what I'm really looking forward to is getting in cosmetic item crafting. I really, really want people to be able to actually, like, completely customize and lay out and tune and tint and dye and decal and all of those things. Like, I want to create that part.
I think, like, sort of going back to some of the original motivations for making this game, like, from the Dark Age days, I have these memories specific to, like, the speed classes, like the Minstrel from Dark Age, of, like, that high speed travel around the world, either coming around a corner or over a cliff or coming out of the woods, and, like, you're going so fast that you slam into another party and there's that instant chaos. Like, I'm looking forward to us getting these mechanics in place so that we can start iterating on gameplay and getting a feel for the size of the world given the speed that the players are traveling, and actually starting to, like, tighten in some of those bolts and size of world and combat really, really taking shape. Like, I'm excited about that.
Alright, this might make a nice ending question. Lodoween asks, what will each of you do the day after launch? Because on the launch day, you might be busy.
We will be busy the day after launch.
I am assuming the 6 weeks after launch are going to be busier than the 6 weeks before launch. Like, that's the nature of you slap that 1.0 on it, and you get a whole lot more eyeballs and of people who are just waiting until it was 1.0, and then you find out the real pain points, because there are things that just change when you have, when you add a 0 to the player count. And some of it's design of just like, oh yeah, we're not spawning resources fast enough for this many players, or the world is too big or too small for this many players.
The king's way too fucking generous.
Yeah, and all of those things that, like, we're just gonna be tuning and tweaking like mad. So, what am I gonna do? Maybe 6 months after launch.
6 weeks and 2 days later, I'm gonna be sleeping.
Yeah, maybe I'll go to Iceland.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we wrap this up?
Yep. So thank you all for tuning in. Apologies to Steve Vai, and we will see you later.
See you later. Keep an eye out for our stuff going out and about tests next week. All right. Bye-bye.
Later, guys.